Hello, for this tutorial, to answer a question on the forums, we're going to set up a simple character, which I'm going to use my cube in the basic level here in our templates, as a character with no physics, but we can control him through flow to move forwards, backwards, all around, and rotate properly. So, to begin, the first thing we want to do is you want to open your basic template or create a new project from the basic template. And you can see here on our screen, it's just our cube on our floor. So the first thing you want to do is you want to add a camera. So you can do create camera, then add a position here. And I've set my camera up in the scene where I would like it to be behind my cube, following from behind here. This camera is called camera. So we're going to go into level flow. And what we want to do is we want to get this camera when we start the level. Currently right now, if we play the level, you can see I just have a free moving camera that just kind of moves around. So we're going to go into level flow with our camera selected. We're going to right click and do create level unit camera. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to link this to our character box, which we're going to use to move around. So we're going to select our box, we're going to go into level flow, and we're going to right click and do create level unit champ box, which is the name of our box. So what we want to do is we want to attach and link this camera to our box in that same relative position. Once you link it, we're going to offset it anyways through flow here, but it's the same relative position as where you set it up. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get the unit camera. So we're going to go unit, get unit camera. Camera name, of course, is camera. And we're going to pipe this into our level unit camera here as the unit. We're also going to add a unit link node. So we're going to go unit, link unit. And we're going to have our box is going to come out and be the parent, and our camera is going to be the child. So the next thing we want to do is we want to set the active camera. So we're going to go to camera, set active camera. Out of our get unit camera, we're going to pipe that into camera. The unit, of course, is our level unit for the camera. And we're going to do this on level loaded. So we're going to pipe that in right there. We're also going to want a link on level loaded, so you can hook that up now for your link unit node. So the next thing we want to do is we want to be able to set the local position and local rotation of our camera. So we're going to go to camera. We're going to set camera local position and camera set camera local rotation. And we're going to pipe our camera directly in here to the camera nodes. And the unit, of course, is our original camera unit as well. Now for the position, I'm just going to go ahead and enter these as to where I want them. So I want my camera to be angled down a little bit. So for my rotation, I'm sorry, let me cancel out of that. For my rotation, I want it to be angled down a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do a minus 20 degree pitch down and 0, 0 rotation on the rest of those. Now for my position, I'm going to have it be back from my unit about 25 units back, and then 10Z up in the air. So it's kind of back behind it and looking down. Now I'm going to want to set these after I set my active camera. So I will pipe those into the ends there. So now that this is all hooked up, when we go to play our level, our camera position should be relatively behind our cube. So as you can see now, our camera is behind our box, which we're going to move around, which is exactly what we'd like. So I've gone ahead and grouped this as well here with this link camera and set offset, just so that these are all grouped together and you can grab them, move them around pretty easily. So the next thing we want to do is we want to open up our champ box in the unit editor by double clicking. And we're going to add some controls to this guy in his unit flow. So if you click the unit flow tab, we're going to start fresh here and we're going to create some movement and input stuff for our character to move around. So the first thing we're going to do is start moving him by position. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to do input and keyboard button. So we're going to have 4 of these. So we can just paste 4 of these right out and put them in a row. And I'm just going to go ahead and use the WASD controls to do this. So my first guy I'm going to do is the letter A, and then we're going to do the letter D, W for forward, and S for backwards. So the next thing we want to do is we want to add move units, because we're going to move this unit. So you go to unit and we look for move unit. So the unit of course is me, and that's set by default, my unit. So when this A is pressed, we want to have an in. And also when it's held, we want to have an in, and we're going to incrementally move this guy. Because he has no physics or no mover, we're just going to do him a set value every tick when we have him pressed, or just when we hit the button once. So we're going to go ahead and do this for every move. And you can hook these guys up, pressed and held for each one. So that's the first part of this. The next part of this is we also want to have the rotation. So we're going to get that through the mouse axis. So we're going to go to Input and Mouse Axis. Out of here, we're just going to do a rotate unit. So you're going to go to Unit, somewhere in here is rotate unit. And on our out value, we're going to come in. But we do want to do some things here to get the proper delta rotation. So we're going to add a vector from components on this value out. So we're going to do math, vector, vector from components, or I'm sorry, vector components. So our value out is going to go into our vector components, so we can split these up and choose the ones that we'd like. The next things we want to do is we want to make sure that our rotation from components is set properly. So we're going to go to math, rotation, rotation from components. We're going to plug this directly into our delta rotation. Now our value here from our vector to our rotation is going to be slightly different. So it's going to come out of our x for the vector components, and it's going to go into our z value to rotate along the z-axis for our unit. So normally we would just connect this here, but for our purposes now we need to flip this x, so we're going to do a multiplication. And we're going to take this x value, we're going to plug it into A, we're going to multiply it so that we flip its axes by a negative value, -1, and then the value here is going to come directly into the z. So now the rotation for our unit is going to be set up properly here when we rotate from vector components through rotation to components and then rotate our unit properly. So now that we have the rotation set up, we're going to want to use that rotation to get our forward vector for moving each one of these incremental moves up here. So for each one of these now, we're going to get the unit local rotation. So we're going to do unit, get unit local rotation. Of course, this is unit is me again. Then we're going to get the vector from the rotation. So we're going to do math, vector, vectors from rotation. We're going to plug this rotational value from the local rotation into the vectors from rotation. Now out of here we want to move this incrementally. So we're going to do a multiplication through the vectors as well. So we're going to do math, vector, multiplication. So for the A value, which is what I'm first pushing in here in my button, this is the right value, so we're going to come into A. We're going to multiply all of these by minus 0.1 because we just want this guy to move a little bit each time, and the A value is actually left, so we do a minus 0.1 so that we're moving left instead of right. And then out of the value here, we're going to do this into the delta position and the velocity. So now we're going to do this for each one of these. So you can pretty much just copy and paste these now at this point. Paste all three of these and we'll drop them down. So now this one is for the D value. Hook those up. So now this is right, so we're just going to do 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. You can paste that again and hook it up into the delta position and velocity. So for this one now we're actually going to do the forward into the A instead of the right. This is for our W, so we're moving forward, so we want these values to be positive. So it's just 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. We do this one more time. Then our value here is going to be the delta rotation velocity. And this is minus, but again this is forwards because this is backwards, so we set it forwards and we multiply it a little bit backwards by each incremental value that we put in. So now you can arrange these however you want. This is pretty well lined up. So this is our unit flow. And I'm going to save this guy. So now basically what we've done is we've got input for WASD controls here in our keyboard buttons. We also have this mouse axis, which is going to take the vector components for the X, which is the vector for rotation. We're going to multiply that by -1 to flip it, set it on the Z rotation from components, and that'll give us our delta rotation for our forward vector, which we then multiply times incremental values for all of these values up here moving forwards left and right. So the last thing we want to do before we test is we want to make sure that this mouse axis is set. We're going to set that to mouse. So now that that's set, we can save our unit here. We go back, we have our unit flow which is set up, we have our level flow which is giving us our camera. So now when we hit play, we've got our box which will rotate with our camera left to right here, and if we move forwards, it's always on our forward vector based on our rotation. You can also do left, right, forwards, backwards, but as you're rotating, it will take into account your forward vector and move your character around your scene the way that you would like. So that's just a really quick tutorial. To recap, we have our level flow here, which is basically just getting our camera in our scene, setting it to a link to our unit behind our unit. Very simple and attached and hard attached with no lag or anything, right where you'd like it to be. And then in our unit flow, here for our champ box, we have this set up with our keyboard buttons and all the buttons we want to push to make sure that those work appropriately with the axis rotation of our mouse. Hopefully that'll help you guys set up some quick non-physics driven characters and show you how to use flow a little bit more. Thanks for watching and look forward to other tutorials soon. Thanks a lot.